Welcome to the Waking Up Podcast. This is Ham Sarris. Okay, well, today, backed by perennial invocation of opposites, the white and black aspects of our nature, I have Peter Jordanson. Peter is a scapegoat. He is the only effective scapegoat, and he's a hero. He has been fighting a pitched battle against Harvard University, and he has published articles on the validity of human sacrifice, right, which is insanity. And he's attracted a lot of support and criticism on that front. As I said last time around, he is far and away the most delusional guest I've ever had. And we did a podcast about 4 or so episodes back entitled What is True, podcast number 62. And that, to the disappointment of everyone, was a fairly brutal slog through differing conceptions of epistemology. If ever the phrase political correctness applied to a podcast, it applied there. Some people enjoyed it, but most of you didn't. But as I say in the conversation today with Peter, I did a poll online, and 81 of you responded and wanted us to try again, because there was much more to talk about. I am back here with Peter Jordanson. Peter, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
My pleasure.
What is the relationship, in your view, between science and religion?
Well, I think that imagine the dominance hierarchy structure of a chimpanzee troop or a wolf pack. The chimp at the top, who's generally male, is there because he's a barbarian dictator. So imagine that as human beings diverged away from their chimpanzee progenitors, the common ancestor we had with chimpanzees. And once we developed language, we were able to start encapsulating that procedural ethic first in stories. And those stories were partly about, and this is a very old story, it's far older than Christianity. The story is that the best way to transcend the bitterness of life is to get murderous when you're bitter.
So I can go with you there, but now, if that is what you find compelling in this story, I could just offer for your examination the Buddha and Buddhism, right? The Buddha is an example of the perfect man, and yet he's far more articulate. I mean, here now we're talking about the historical Buddha, who predated female apes by 5 centuries, but who seems to have said much more that is psychologically perspicacious. And he talks exactly on that point about the nature of acceptance.
Well, I think actually that you make a mistake with Buddha. You see, because there's also a longing for psychedelic drugs.
But again, I would argue, and this is what I argue in my book, Waking Up, you imagine yourself to be a deity or a bodhisattva, and you can essentially be a scientist of introspection. And you can use drugs to do that. You can use the idea that you are Batman, right? That you're Bruce Wayne, right? That you have all of these secret abilities, and it smashes into Jesus, right? Because of what most people are doing with Jesus.
Yes, well, okay. So, right, look, no arguments there. But at what point would you be a bodhisattva? That's something Buddhists ask themselves all the time. Why would you be an incarnation of Christ? Something that is delusional. But there's a reality underneath this, which is that better people are better and worse people are worse.
Well, I would grant you, and again, this is the topic of my book, Waking Up, that there are possibilities on the positive end of human psychology, whether on drugs or, after some crisis. It's the sheer profundity of slamming into the present moment. That proves that you preceded the Big Bang. Your consciousness was there before the Big Bang. What I'm arguing for is that we just remain attentive to honest talk about what we know about reality, even while we have deep experiences and seek them out by whatever means. And again, what are you doing today to slay the dragon and bring back that hoarded wealth to your community? That's a pattern of thought that I have no question could have some utility, right?
Well, that's what we were doing today. But having said that, the abandonment of all value structures, which is, say, the postmodernist perspective, is a way forward, because it leads to a situation where people are going to be unconsciously possessed by far more foolish ideas than they left behind them. That's the best way at the moment that we can slay our respective dragons.
Well, listen, Peter, it's a pleasure to talk to you second time.
Yeah, well, sometimes some stupid is useful, and hooray for that.
Yeah. Well, listen, so I will invite people to respond yet again as I did the first time. And you, Peter, were my most delusional guest by a factor of I don't know what, but it was remarkable. Listen, it's a pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck with your crazy and everything else you're doing.
Much appreciated, and good talking with you.